Hello and welcome to SAAS TV. We are so excited to have you join us. I am fortunate enough to host both Julien and Andrew. They are alum. They graduated in 2016, and since their graduation, they have been off at college and they have been exploring various areas of entrepreneurship. They started their first business together in their senior year at Seattle Academy, and we will be learning all about their journey, just a little bit about each one. Julien is a senior at Bates College, and he had a high emphasis on developing socially aware businesses as well as ideas and going through that whole process. And Andrew is also a senior, and he will be graduating shortly from Santa Clara, and he's going to be going into real estate, and Julien's going to be a consultant at Accenture in New York City. And I would love to welcome them. Julien and Andrew, if you would like to join me. And then we will start off with a presentation about their business. I don't want to give away too much so that they can have everything. And then I would love to also invite people to submit questions as they go through their presentation. And afterwards, we will open up for a Q&A. You can just submit your questions as you think of them so that we have some things to go off of. We encourage all students to ask those burning questions about what it's like to start a business so early, or even what it's like to be in college at this point during COVID. The questions are all fair game. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Julien and Andrew.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Yeah, and hi everyone. Thanks for being here.
Okay. All right, so I'm assuming that everyone can see my shared screen right now. I'm Julien, and I, as Mariah said, am a senior graduating from Bates College this year.
And I'm Andrew Westhoff, graduating from Santa Clara this year in a few months.
Awesome. So what our business, Manatee Aquatic, is a premier lakefront milfoil removal service for residential and commercial lakefront properties on Lake Washington. So first, we're going to talk about a little bit about our company, Manatee Aquatic, and then we're going to jump into what entrepreneurship is, who successful entrepreneurs usually are, and how you can hopefully become one. So first, milfoil is a very invasive aquatic plant, or essentially a water weed in Lake Washington and in many areas west of the Mississippi. And this plant is extremely devastating to ecosystems, both to biodiversity itself in terms of the animals and the fish and native wildlife that live down there, but also for humans who live on the lakes because of their boats that take place on them, their docks, and also for swimming and enjoyable purposes. And so what we've done is essentially come up with a business model that limits or reduces or rids milfoil in these ecosystems.
So what we discovered years ago was that all of this seaweed actually grows in a very specific area in the lake, and that specifically it grows in areas where the sunlight can actually reach the lake bottom. And so we did a lot of research online and talking to other people that were somewhat in the industry, and we realized that there is a solution to get rid of this, and that is to cover this aquatic plant with the screens that you see in the bottom left of the screen. We call this a benthic barrier. So these are 10-foot by 50-foot, 500 square foot tarps that lie on the bottom of the lake, and they lie there for about 6 to 8 weeks, which is how long it takes them to completely eradicate this invasive weed. So this was kind of our initial business plan, and this is how we kind of entered this industry, was understanding that covering the weeds from light would actually get rid of them and restore biodiversity, the natural occurring plants in the lake.
Exactly. So in our service, which is quite unique, we offer many different types of tarps, but it's important when starting a business to think about how diverse you really want your product lines to be. And so in our first model, we only offered one different product. And this is pretty common among small businesses because it's hard to keep up with supply if you're always switching up the products you have, given that you probably are going to have a limited amount of demand because you're starting out. And so what you really want to do is offer one product, for us specifically, and hope that people, engage and come with that service. And so for us, that was roughly a 10 or 11 by 50 foot tarp that would be internally secured by rebar, which will allow these tarps to sink to the bottom of the lake, as Andrew said, and cover the milfoil. And during that time, obviously the plant decomposes because of its lack of access to sunlight. And so what's been great about our business is that not only do we leave these tarps down for 4 to 6 weeks and then remove them, but we actually transfer them from property to property. So as you could imagine, we have a fixed cost of these tarps, let's just call X, and then that price X gets depreciated among all of the different properties that we survey or use or have customers for. So these tarps we've used for more than 10 clients, and we've had clients who have had success rates of the reduction of milfoil for more than 3 years, which is remarkable. And much of milfoil the growth of it is based on where you live on the lake, because the current is going to take the seeds that are redeposited from those regrown plants and reseed in areas. And so the best idea is to not only get it yourself, but have your neighbors go in with it with you.
Yeah. And do you mind if I follow up on that?
Go for it.
So could you go back one slide, please? So one of the great positives of our service here is, first of all, many of our competitors, as Julien may have mentioned, pull the weed out of the ground. And as Julien just said, this actually spreads kind of the seeds of this weed all over the lake. And so we've kind of decided that is not a route that we're necessarily excited about right off the bat, that we wanted to grow our business with, because we think that this is a much more effective way of getting rid of the seaweed. Additionally, after the weeds break down under the tarp, we never have to come in and physically remove the weed, because they're broken down by bacteria in the lake, and they're released through the tarps by means of bubbles and gas. So when we pull the tarp away, it's completely a sandy bottom, which is great for swimming and boating.
That's awesome. I actually have one question that I think we should ask now while it's relevant.
Yeah.
A question from Zachary. Is the Manatee Aquatic team and milfoil extraction process harmful to any invasive species? And I might add on there, as well as, currently natural species found in these lakes that you're servicing. I know you're at Lake Washington currently, but also local lakes. What is already naturally found there?
Yeah, so I can answer that, and then I'm sure Andrew will tap on. But this is, as we've shown through research in terms of what's been published online and also in our own experience, that this is a very, very safe and environmentally friendly method. The invasive plant is so invasive that it actually chokes out all of the native plant life, so that the biodiverse nature under the sea can't really feed off any plants existing. And so because of how crowded out the native plants are, these fish and all of the animals that live down there and creatures really don't have many nutrients at all. And so once this plant decomposes, it allows for the regrowth of those natural and native plant life, so that biodiversity can increase, and fish and underwater creatures can regain their nutrients from natural habitats.
Yeah, that's great. I think that probably answers it.
Thanks, Zach. So yeah, we're gonna go over to the property layout slide. Andrew?
So to give a bit of structure on how we interact with our clients right off the bat, we kind of start by making contact with them and engaging for interest. And then once we realize that they may have interest, we supply them with a variety of different kind of proposals that you see below. And it usually ranges by the layout and the square footage. So our business model is set up to charge by the square foot. So obviously, as you increase tarps, the amount of square feet covered, you will increase price. And so here you see two options, the lower half and the higher half of the screen. So in the higher, you see 3 tarps. So those are 3 500 square foot tarps, so that'd be 1,500 square feet. And then you'd see 1,000 square feet on the bottom. And these would be 2 different options that a client may be able to, respond to an email and say, I would take option 1, which is the top one, and then we would then come to their property with 3 tarps, install them, and then later send an invoice to them. And so that's kind of the operational side of how we interact with our clients.
Exactly. So the last phase, or thing we'll talk about in terms of our business, is the market size. And so what's important for both entrepreneurs that are coming up in this class, or really anywhere, you need to consider market size. And this is really important because you're really gauging what demand is like in either your local area or however big you believe that this business can take you. So for us, we figured, okay, let's just gauge Lake Washington because that's primarily where we're located and the residents who we're going to be most interacting with. Much like any business, if you're starting a nonprofit, you probably want to see who in the local community is going to hopefully sponsor you or work with you, or maybe even a bread delivery service, who's in your couple square mile radius who you can deliver to easily. And so for us, there's around 66 miles of lakefront shore. There's X amount of houses, around 2,000 that need to service, many more commercial businesses, and then tons of beach clubs and country clubs. And so this really applies to any business. You want to think about what the geographic position is of your business and who you can reach to. 2, who those actual individuals are, the demographics of the people themselves, maybe age, gender, ethnicity, whoever's going to purchase your product more. And then also 3rd, what sort of commercial or non-residential folks are going to be interested in your business. And so that's pretty much what we have about our company.
That is perfect. Thank you so much, Julien and Andrew. I really appreciate you guys giving the overview. And just a little bit about our side at Seattle Academy. So I have been fortunate enough to be a teacher here teaching investments, innovations prototyping, which is where students build out a business idea into a rough stage of a full business plan and then present to a group of panelists. And they basically do what you guys did in the slideshow, right? Think through all of those different objectives and think strategically about how they can grow, what it would look like to feasibly launch. And then some students are looking at potentially launching here in the next year or 2 with their own ideas. And I've just been very fortunate to be a part of that journey. And if you guys would like to launch a little bit into a Q&A maybe for just your business, and then we launch into the rest of your content, I think that would be really cool. Do we have any additional questions that people would either like to submit into the Q&A or into the chat bar? That works as well. We will look at both, about what they've done and how far they've come. Just to reiterate, they did start this back when they were at Seattle Academy as high school seniors, and they have kept it going. And then this summer, they're going to kind of recruit some more clients and build it out. All right, so we have a question from Finn. The question is, how did you launch your business? Did you create a website?
Awesome.
Julien, you can start there.
Sure. So really exciting. We took a business innovations course. I'm not sure if that's still offered at SAAS. I think it's maybe called Entrepreneurship or something. But in this business innovations course, we were presented with a final project where we had to present to a panel of judges. And I think these were either parents or people in the local community who decided that they wanted to see some final projects from SAAS. And so, struggling to come up with an idea, we were sitting at our friend's house looking over the water or whatnot, I think maybe a park or something, and it was nearly summertime, and we're thinking, gosh, we want to jump in the lake, but there's so much of that green, icky crap all out there. And so we just thought, okay, let's just get rid of it. And we quickly scrambled, put together a final project, and thought, with a little bit of research, we'll just cover it and block it from sunlight. That must do something because it works in the garden with, whatever that black tarp is that you put under the soil. And so that was pretty much our, first idea. And we scrambled, we did well, the judges loved it. And then we decided that summer, why not try to actually put into use some of the stuff that we've learned? And so then that summer, Andrew and George, the other founder of the business, who's not here with us right now, did some trial runs. Andrew?
Yeah, so we actually started using kind of a screen dooring material, and obviously without the door frames, but just the screen dooring. And George and I had also been excited about this because we had been lucky enough to scuba dive a bit together. And so I think we had some spare gear laying around, and so we decided to kind of trial and error with the screen dooring and putting rocks on top of it. Which is, it sounds silly now looking back, but it was kind of that first step into then understanding what we really needed. So we started there, and it was effective, but we didn't think we could really scale a business saying we're going to come put rocks on top of screen doors in front of your property. So we started looking into more manufacturers, and we found this this company called Lake Bottom Blanket that's produced on the East Coast, where we get all of our lake bottom blankets. And so again, we have a few different sizes, but the main sizes we use a 10 by 50 foot tarp, and then they're very heavy with steel rods through them that allow them to lay and stay in place on the bottom. So that was kind of the evolution of how we do it operationally. And then on the other side, we kind of had to grow just by word of mouth through media and marketing and through other streams. But
we do have a website, and we created that this summer that we started our business, especially because we needed a way to contact clients, or have we needed to drive awareness to clients, but then also be able to be accessible by clients. And so we had a contact us page. And for Finn, it's really easy to create a website. There are many different platforms, but we decided to use Squarespace.
Thank you, guys. That was a great question, Finn. I appreciate it. Feel free to continue asking. I would love to just ask a question from an anonymous attendee relating back to your tarps. How involved are you in the manufacturing end of the tarps? So you mentioned that you're working with someone. Have you been able to give them feedback or worked with them to develop different sizes, or have you just gone off their stock so far? What does that look like?
So yeah, as Andrew said, we started out using our own, but they were not as effective as the ones that we had found online. And so we actually use these straight from the supplier, but we've had a really, really strong relationship with the supplier. And so because they know that we are doing this as a business, they have offered us many package discounts in terms of how many we buy, bulk discount. So it's always good to be friendly to the supplier because you never know how long you'll need them and if you'll ever transition over to creating your own. But in the future, we do plan to produce our own if we get to that stage.
Yeah, and can I just say just a lesson on that was that this company, Lake Bottom Blanket, they actually do not give discounts to orders our size usually. They usually only give discounts to mass orders. I don't know if they may be used for other types of procedures, but we kind of built up a relationship with them, and they understood that we were just coming out of high school, and they really valued that as young people trying to start a business. So I think these relationships can be just critical to helping you along the way as you kind of build your business.
Yeah, and I guess the lesson is you really don't know who's going to say yes or no until you ask, and so it's always better to take that leap of faith and see whether or not someone's going to decide to help you out or not.
I think that's a great answer. I tell so many of my students that you have the student card through the high school and college years. Go ahead and use it because everyone, including myself, wants to give back in some way. But once you're out in the real world, things can get a little bit more expensive pretty quickly. And so try and learn and be a sponge as much as you can through this process and build up that team of cheerleaders, whether it's your manufacturer or your legal team or your financial team, who are going to help you through those rough times as you grow, because there's always growing pains. That was a great question. Thank you so much to our anonymous attendee. We have another question here for you from Gary. Do you guys have plans after college for the business?
Yeah, well, a lot of this summer we're gonna think about that, and there's a few different routes that we've thought of, about going with that. I think one, there's obviously the idea that we could kind of figure out a way to sell off the business or to, add additional people that would be interested in running it. There's also the opportunity to possibly still maintain some control over it and kind of have younger people possibly interested, SAAS grads or people that are currently at SAAS that would want to operate the business and kind of run it. And then we've also kind of explored the option of merging with another milfoil removal company that might use a different kind of method of getting the job done, but they might have a different clientele list, and so we've kind of looked at those three options as possibilities. But navigating the coronavirus and how we're going to go into the summer, I think we're gonna think hard on that. But Julien, what do you think?
I think that's a perfect answer.
Those are both great answers. And Gary, I appreciate the question so much. We have a couple more here, actually. We have some really good ones. Let's see. All right, we have another from our anonymous attendee. How much time is dedicated to your business each week? And how do you balance being in college and running a business?
I guess I can start. How much time is dedicated to your business each week? So I think that because the business is seasonal, it's really dependent on what time of the year it is. And so luckily for us, our business takes up in between the months of April and September. So that's optimal for our college student because unlike SAAS at high school, you don't have to read any books over the summer and stuff like that. So we can pretty much invest all of our time into it. But we have both, Andrew and I have balanced our time with internships throughout the summer. And so that's been a difficult feat in itself. So really we've both been focused on how do we develop ourselves professionally so that we can be, sellable in the business world or in the real estate world for Andrew specifically. But then also how do we, continue to do the things that we love? And so we have done internships, but then also made time after work for many, many long nights doing the business. And so it really ranges. I can't give you a time, amount, but a business is something that, some might say like a baby. You have to feed it, you have to give it nutrients, and you have to grow it. And it's something that if you want to see it come to fruition, you really need to spend all of your time taking care of it and attending to it. And it's not like the development is ever done with a baby, and certainly, or with a business, certainly never a baby. Maybe our parents would argue that I'm not done developing. But you can't ever think that the project is over, and you need to always continue working at it.
Absolutely.
That's a great answer. I think it's so true. Running a business is something where you don't necessarily take time off from it because it's continuing to grow, and there's so many challenges that come up as you're developing your business just because evolution happens, right? Property changes for you guys. What does that look like? The different rulings about wildlife in Washington State and what you can and cannot put into the lake change. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great question, and you guys have managed to balance things really, really well. And that you even have plans after college. That's amazing, especially during this time with COVID. Yeah. And we actually did have a question kind of relating to COVID is, what do you guys see the impact of COVID on your business for this summer and maybe into the fall? And then we have quite a few other questions that we'll get to kind of about social media and marketing on all these great aspects of how to build clientele.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a great question. Something we've been thinking about a lot. And first, we'd really like to just acknowledge that we understand that there's been a tremendous impact on so many, all sizes of businesses, but specifically small businesses. I think in our case, we're in a very unique situation where we actually kind of supplement people's fun as they enjoy themselves on their own property and being kind of tied to their own house and hopefully lakefront. So I think our clients, we've kind of taken it as the opportunity to say, hey, a lot of you guys are going to be spending much more time around your house, on your dock, swimming, possibly boating, and obviously being in public a lot less. We want to make sure that you have the most fun and have the cleanest waterfront and lakefront area for swimming. So that's kind of our approach. We acknowledge that it's not business as usual, but we're not going to be deterred by this.
I think to add on to Andrew's point, which I think is entirely true, is that in a time like this, in terms of there's many things to worry about in a time like this, but in terms of business, people need to think about how to diversify and how to, meet the needs of consumers. And consumers' needs are changing both now and maybe even after this. This might be the, tipping point to a new revolution in business in terms of contactless. We see that through medicine. People don't want to wait in doctor's lines anymore. People want to be treated at their own time, maybe on their cell phone while driving to work, really anything. And so it's an opportunity to think about how to diversify, change your product line, and also see the growing needs of consumers. And I think that speaks to most entrepreneurs, especially when they're starting or if they've already had a stable business.
Absolutely. I think that's a great answer. And just to kind of reiterate, I think in this time we've seen so much change and so much called upon these small businesses to adapt to, by the minute, right? New regulations, new circumstances, different financial circumstances that are hindering growth. And I think to really be an entrepreneur, you have to embrace change and to understand how to do it quickly and in a way that is truly focused on your mission, but also your customers. And so I think that's really cool that you guys are focusing on how can you better serve your customers. And you're probably already thinking of contactless ways, just like you said, to get onto a property and make as minimal of an impact as possible while offering the best outcome for them to enjoy that property during the summer in probably a socially distanced summer that Seattle's never seen before.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great answer to a really complex question. Which actually leads us into another question. We have an anonymous attendee who has some great questions for you about problems. Have you ever experienced any problems with your business, or what is one big problem that you did encounter?
Well, we've had endless problems to start, but Julien, do you have any main points on that you'd like to start? Or?
Sure, yeah. So I think you can structure these types of responses in a few different ways, and there's many different parts of a business. There's the operations of a business, there's the client facing side, there's internal facing, and then there might be sales issues. And so those are just a few of ours. But we've had problems across all of these, and it would be a problem in itself, I think, if we didn't. There's no business that is perfect, and the actual fundamental, being of entrepreneurship is adapting and working in a risky environment, because people are going to have different trains of thought. People are going to have different visions for what they believe the company should be in the future, what it should be that day, or what should be tomorrow. And we've also had troubles in terms of, maybe poorly communicating what our service is to clients, giving them something that they hadn't have asked for, which we haven't done. And then maybe in terms of operations, something not working out to someone's standards. If, maybe the tarp, for example, for our business had moved because of a water current or really anything. Our boat actually died at one of our biggest clients' properties, which was maybe the least professional thing that could have happened. But the thing is that in a small business, you have to plan for those things to happen, and you have to come up with, responses right on the spot for not only apologies, but how you're going to remedy that situation. And so really across all business models, you need to be professional when problems happen and make sure that the stakeholders in that business are all aligned in terms of, their vision for the company and what they believe is best for the company.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you said. And I think for me, looking back, one of my biggest regrets, or something I wish I could have done slightly differently was hesitation. And I think, Julien talked about the various areas that we could have issues. One thing I think we could have done a lot better from the start was to talk to everyone and to reach out. I think we were hesitant to reach out to different markets. And we stuck to what we were comfortable with in the beginning. We talked to family, friends, and referrals and various, single family people or just residential. We always wanted to kind of expand into more of a commercial space. And last summer we were able to kind of break through that barrier and eventually create a dialogue with people that own gas stations, the lake gas stations. And so I'm disappointed that we hesitated on reaching out earlier. But I'm glad we did in the end. So that was kind of looking back, I think always just go for it when you think you can. So.
Yeah. Good answer. I think everyone has, hindsight of what they wish they had done. And it's just so important to think about those reflections and to use those moving forward. And I think so many students are going to be inspired by your notion of just try something and see what happens and analyze what the outcome was and how you can change it. kind of going back to your customer side of things and looking at how you market, as well as what you said of kind of risk mitigation with clients, whether they're really happy and they want to leave a great review, or if they're, there was some confusion, and how do you actually manage that client? We had a question from Zach regarding other social media platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, etc. How do you use these to maybe manage your clients, but also build clientele within your business? And he specifically said, along with your website. So kind of that combination factor.
Yeah, so I think this is a really good point. And you have to be strategic about how you use social media and how you use the internet. Because, for example, we're not only targeting the specific owners of these properties, but we're also, targeting the people that use these properties. And it might not be that just the owners use these properties, that maybe it's the kids of the owners. And so thinking about how these, functional programs work differently and attract different audiences is key to figuring out how to best optimize your performance on the internet. And so in terms of Instagram, maybe that's going to be a younger demographic. Maybe Facebook is going to reach an older demographic with different groups of people in terms of, web page groups and older folks. And then you have, website that people can search you online immediately. And so thinking about how to maximize your reach is essentially the most important part of having the social media and websites.
That's a great answer. I think social media is one of those areas that kind of generally speaking is very new to businesses, even though Facebook has been around for a while. Just if you look at the history of businesses in general, that's a whole new avenue of marketing that's only come about in the last couple decades, really. It's kind of transformed over time, but we have so many different variations. And just like Julien said, there's different age demographics associated with each. So you have to really align your marketing tactics with that social media avenue to make sure that you're hitting the demographic that you want in the way that you want, and that you're also getting an action out of that.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's some kind of like or some kind of reaching out on the website to get an initial inquiry. It's how do you actually transfer those into, ideally, customers, even if the customer you're reaching out to isn't necessarily the customer paying.
Yeah, exactly. And then just to jump in again, also thinking about what sort of message you want to send. Are you using these platforms more as social awareness for your brand? Are you using these to actually engage clients and educate them? Or are you using these to generate leads for your business? Are you using these to actually draw people or clients into your business that might be paying clients? So thinking about all those different, groupings and figuring out which program works best for that suiting is super important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think from my own experience working with clients, just being consistent in that messaging and the timing of your posts or your engagement is so important, because a lot of folks today go on these social media platforms, and if they don't see any posts or engagements, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, they figure that the business might have evaporated and you're no longer there. And so there's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because you have to make sure you're active enough that people think you're there, but then balancing how much time do you really invest in those platforms, because it can really be an endless tunnel of media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Thank you, Zach, for that question. That was great. It actually leads us right into our next question. How many customers have you actually had?
Julien, I don't know if you know an exact number, but I think
I think it's in the ballpark of 40 or so. And so it differs in terms of how many we get per year. We actually saw a lot of traffic in our first year, as those were mostly friends and family as we were trying to grow the business. But then we've been lucky enough to have had referrals by friends and to other people who live on the lake, or through traffic through our website, or through doing flyer drops. And I think we forgot to mention that, but we have gone across the lake, driven all across the lake and printed out these neat flyers and dropped them off at people's houses. But you can't put them in people's post mailboxes, as we've learned through being contacted by the USPS. So don't do that if you're interested, but it is fair game to leave it on people's porches and outside of their properties. So we've driven awareness in a lot of different ways, and most of our clients are, relatively high paying. And so in our business, the, you know, we don't need a ton of clients. We don't need hundreds and hundreds of clients, but we need those few clients who are going to be high paying.
Yeah. And that's one thing that we've really thought a lot about, is how we focus and allocate our energies. And so, if we realize that a certain region is only giving us, single tarp jobs, and the entire process to get out there and install one tarp is so much energy, gas, and air for our dive tanks and everything. It becomes a cumbersome process, whereas targeting these more commercial properties like marinas, which we've done a few marinas and a few boat gas stations, which end up being larger jobs, and it's much more efficient from an operational standpoint. So that's something that we've thought about and directed more energy towards those commercial properties.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's so wise, right? You're just looking for the resources and then trying to expedite how you can get your customers in line, but also increase the efficiency of each customer and the payout that you guys get as owners and as also laborers in this case. And kind of leading into another question is, what does it look like for when you guys look at your pricing? How did you come about figuring out the pinpoint pricing that makes your customers say yes, but also fulfills all those costs that you explained, right? You're going to have gas, you're going to have your tanks, as well as whoever's working for you, whether that's yourselves or people that you're hiring on.
Yeah, that's a great question. And Julien, we can both talk about this, but I can just start with saying, it was kind of another we keep saying it was a trial and error process, but really they all kind of are. And we had originally structured it so that the first tarp we put in had kind of a built-in premium, and that was supposed to cover, showing up there, again, the boat gas and all the appropriate scuba gear involved in putting these tarps in. And then there was a set price for each remaining tarp. And kind of as we've had more feedback from clients and what people have enjoyed and what people haven't, obviously people enjoy lower prices, but we kind of found this equilibrium at a certain price point per foot. And so that's become the most effective way. People are averaging, higher amounts of tarps per job. It's gone up into the 2s and 3s instead of just single tarps. So we have to rely less on that premium. And instead we kind of have this consistent pricing that goes across. But it was trying something and then maybe going lower and seeing if we have more action. So that's kind of how we went about it.
Yeah, exactly. I would totally sign on that. And I think that really in any business, there's two different options. There's the profit margin option, where you're going to figure out exactly how much profit you want from that one client. So it might be that you're selling your product for $10 and you want to always make 50% profit margin. So you're going to add whatever that premium is to that cost. Or there's the option of just charging a flat rate. And so for us, we elected to go with more of the profit margin route. And this has been hugely beneficial because we know that for each client, we're going to get a certain amount of profit. And then that also plays into the depreciation of our tarps. If we're continuing to use them, then we're going to continue to get a certain amount of profit, supposedly an increase each time, each client, because we're depreciating it more and more for each client on each tarp. And so that's sort of how we've played into pricing. But really, if you're interested in going into any sales business or any sort of service industry, negotiation is where this lies. If you go into the car dealership, you're going to negotiate for that price of the car. And if you get a new roof, you're going to negotiate for the price of that roof. And so if you're entering into this industry, you need to be prepared to, negotiate and be somewhat unrelentless in terms of what you charge, because sometimes people are going to want to, you're going to play the puppy eyes, and you're going to want to fall into their trap and charge them less. But you need to be unwavering in your approach to charge everyone the same amount.
That's a hard task, and I completely understand that task and sympathize with you guys when you do have to go through those negotiations, because you have costs. Those don't go away if you lower the price, right?
Exactly.
We do have a question from someone very specifically. What is your average profit margin? Or what do you strive for? I guess we should aim for, maybe.
Is this a student or someone that lives on the lake?
This is an anonymous attendee, so I couldn't tell you.
I think it's different each year. We've really changed because we are a small business and we're still learning and adapting to what our clients' needs are and to what our needs are. And so each year, these profit margins have changed because of, not necessarily because of the cost, but because of what we are charging to clients to see if we can increase our demand. And so we've really hovered around the I think 30 to 50% profit margin, but this also discounts our time. We place a value on our time, and that's not necessarily represented through the price of this service that we're charging to clients.
Yeah, I think that's one of the areas where it's so hard to say, right? Once you start adding in your time, all of those hours developing everything, what does that profit margin really look like in real life? Not necessarily just as they are on your books right now. And so I think that's a really good question, because so many students, want to have as high of a profit margin as possible. But once you start adding in the time, the labor, accounting, all of those different factors, it really does nibble into it pretty quick. And so I think that's very realistic to start with that. Thank you, anonymous attendee, for your question. We have another question from Gary, and I'm going to do maybe one or two more questions, and then Julien and Andrew, I'll let you guys finish up your slides, because I think that will have a whole nother kind of range of impact on the students. So the question from Gary is, you didn't talk much about the diving aspect of your business. That is something that's very specialized, and it's an expertise. In terms of your previously mentioned potential exit strategies, sell, merge, expand, hire others, how would you plan for passing on said expertise? And does that affect how you're thinking about those options?
Yeah.
That was a very complex question.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's a great question. And it's something that we've had to consider a lot, because it is a very, specialized and possibly litigious kind of task to perform. And so if we were going to maintain ownership and bring on new younger people, that would be something that we'd have to be, look into a lot. What I would say is that it is possible to do this job without any diving. And we've done that on a lot of our jobs. In my opinion, it would be the safest way to go if we were to maintain ownership, to not allow any employees to dive, because it is possible to do this from the dock, from the boats, but kind of from a perfectionist eye, I guess. We like actually being down there and making sure that the tarp is in perfect position when we leave. It would take longer to do without, but you just need good lungs and the ability to continuously swim down and make sure that it is placed perfectly for the client. So it's a great question, but I think we'd stray away from contracting anyone or hiring anyone as an employee and having them dive, again, for that litigious reason.
Maybe specifically too, if they haven't been well versed in diving, but that is not to say that if there has been an experienced diver that we would, completely turn down this option. And there are, 100% certified classes that you can take over the summer to become specialized in this. And so that is definitely an opportunity that we see, I'll say. But, in the grand scheme of things, we want to ensure complete safety for anyone that we bring onto the team. And so it would really be a conversation with that individual about whether they feel comfortable doing this or not, because there are many different roles that one could take in the company, whether it be sales, whether it be the finances behind it, or the actual operations itself. And so Andrew and George are both the experienced divers and licensed, and I've had nearly no experience diving and I'm not licensed. And so this has never been a problem though, because most of the time you need 3 people and oftentimes only 2 divers. So there is wiggle room.
Awesome. I think that's a great answer. And I think also part of what your value add, right, is that you have these expertise. So it does keep a certain number of competitors out of your field and makes it just a simply more difficult business to really just launch yourselves into, you do have to have some expertise, not only on the actual tarps and how they land, but also on how to put them down properly, that they stay and that they don't, like you said, move with any kind of current. And so I think that's a really cool aspect of your business that you're actually leveraging on, that there is this required expertise to an extent. So that barrier of entry is quite a bit higher than several other businesses out there that work on properties. That's a great question. Thank you so much, Gary. Do we have any last minute questions for these two before I let them finish up their slides? The rest of the slides are more focused on entrepreneurship in general. All right, without further ado, Julien and Andrew, go ahead and wrap up those slides, and then we'll just open up for a general Q&A at the very end.
Awesome.
Great.
I was going to gauge some questions from the audience, but I guess I'll just skip that for now. It seems a little bit difficult, but really we wanted to delve into what is entrepreneurship, and I'm sure for the students listening to this, they know what entrepreneurship is, but it's always good to have a recap from a different perspective, because there really is no one definition or understanding of entrepreneurship, and that's why I love it so much. So from the Merriam-Webster, an entrepreneur is one that organizes, manages, and assumes the risk of a business or enterprise. And so this is important because risk is a huge factor in business. It's something that you need to be comfortable with. You need to be in a financially stable or confident position enough to take that. And so it is of concern. Andrew, do you want to talk about the 4 types?
Yeah, so again, it's hard to put different types of businesses into these kind of factions, but in theory, I guess we'd break down and say, there's kind of small business, and that would be someone like us, or someone that we don't expect to necessarily be a Fortune 500 company eventually. There are scalable, these are the startups that would grow into larger companies, as you see. So larger companies are these established companies, and then we talk about social entrepreneurship and kind of making changes in the community, whether it be philanthropy or a multitude of other ways. And so this kind of sums up what we just said here. But I think the difference is here, as my question was looking at this, was, well, what's the difference between Facebook and a large company? That may pop into someone's head. And I think scalable is really the idea that you're starting a business that has the opportunity to grow into something much, much larger, and will take a lot of different players to scale. Julien, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. As you see here, I'm sure many people are familiar with Molly Moon's in Seattle, and that would be somewhat of a small business. You are trying to compete with the Ben & Jerry's of the world. Ben & Jerry's is massive. And so much of the United States is encompassed with small businesses. You see down here that firms with less than 20 workers make up 90% of the firms in the US. And so as we see with coronavirus, while the economy may be doing well, while the stock market might be doing well, many small businesses are unfortunately failing. And so it's important to think about those businesses in your local area, because they make up the majority of the business in America. And so the difference between scalable and large in my mind is that one transforms into the other. Scalable is something that is quick growing. It has no care for profit margin per unit. Let's just give Uber as an example. They don't have that everyone is dumping into Uber and no one is going to Lyft, or vice versa. And they want to see total conquering of the market. And so that's what a scalable business would be, and something that has the potential to dominate the market. And so once they get into that phase where they've created a brand name for themselves, created recognition, created safety and security, and created demand for themselves, and even supply, let's say, for Uber, then that transitions into a larger company that potentially goes public, has shareholders that aren't those who started the company, and have many, many employees that they're responsible for. And so in my mind, that is what the transformation of a small to large business is. And then hopefully I put social at the end because social entrepreneurship is really important, but it's hopefully incorporated in large businesses. And we've seen that now with corporate social responsibility, CSR, in major Fortune 500 companies. And millennials and Generation Z, people like us who are, the students at SAAS, are really interested in seeing those and have advocated for purchasing mostly from companies that, sponsor CSR work. And so as I put down here, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, because everyone's so familiar with it, and it's arguably one of the most successful social ventures that's out there, is that you really want to wrap up business by, serving and doing well to your community. Because at the end of the day, these larger companies employ so much of the workforce, and it's only fair to give back to the communities in which they hire from and the, ecosystems and environments that they use. So that's my point for that. And then we were going to go into what do successful entrepreneurs have in common. Andrew?
Yeah, so, when we talk about it, one, I want to just differentiate the fact that we're not all knowing on this, and that everyone is still learning. We've had some success with our company, so we're speaking from our experience here. But I think the thing there's in my mind, there's kind of two aspects that are critical in entrepreneurs. And one is kind of this curiosity and drive that is really, causing them to always look into chasing their goals and kind of following what they are excited about, but what they also, acknowledge is feasible. And then, a second aspect to me would be kind of understanding your weaknesses and being very real about them. And I think that's one thing that we really learned with our company is, Julien and I, we're great teammates because we have such different brains, and, we're able to think in a lot of different ways. So all the time Julien tells me something that I had never thought of. And that is because, that might be in one of my weak areas, and I might kind of fill in the gaps for him too in other areas. So kind of finding these areas where you can collaborate and find commonalities with your teammates is just critical to kind of building this team around you, because some entrepreneurs try to do everything on their own. And I don't think that's wise. I think, always collaborating and kind of working as a team will always win out. So, that is my main thought, Julien. Yeah.
And then this is sort of something that we created, and this is what I use in an entrepreneurship club that I run at school. But the first step in figuring out whether or not you are fit for entrepreneurship is really identify, or not fit for entrepreneurship, everyone is in my opinion, but whether or not you have the right idea that's going to turn into a business is evaluating yourself. And as Andrew said, you want to be passionate, you want to be excited about what you're getting into. And so the first step and goal of studying yourself is really to get a personal mission statement to see how committed you are to what this idea is. I mean, in high school, when we were starting this business, we were passionate about it. We were excited. We wanted to get on the lake. We wanted to meet people. We wanted to be in the sun. It was everything awesome to a high school and college student. So following what you believe in is the money will always come along. That's something my dad said. You do what you think is right, do what you think is best for you, and the money will follow. And so then you jump into understanding others. Andrew? Yeah,
and we can kind of move through this. I know we don't have a ton of time, but we think it's critical to understand others and really, really be conscious of your clientele and their needs and kind of the possibilities in the area that you choose to pursue. So we spend a ton of time actually just asking our clients, like, what, how did you feel when we did this? What did you think about this pricing or the end result 2 years later? How has that been impacted? And so understanding other people is critical to, then taking your business to the next step. We've talked a lot about research and understanding your market, and I don't know that we need to necessarily drone on a lot about that, but as Julien talked about, is finding your market size and the potential margins that you might see as you kind of deploy a product, and then just kind of understanding your business's ability to scale. And so that's also something we know that as I said, our business probably won't become a Fortune 500, but we think it could definitely expand greater than Lake Washington, greater than just the Northwest. And we think anything's possible with the way that we've run our business.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to wrap up that slide. And for our last slide, we can really rush through it. But it might look kind of complicated, but in my opinion, the must-have in a business, and there always must be this, is a mission, vision, and values. And that is really what's going to hold not only the company, but your employees and all the stakeholders in your business together. If you are committed to a certain cause, whether it be in a technology company, in a bread making company, in a dog walking company, and really whatever it is, if you are committed to a certain set of obligations by what your company says, then all else will continue as needed. And so there needs to be partners in your business. There need to be people that you can rely on for questions and answers when you need them the most. The resources where you're going to learn, LinkedIn. I don't know if any of you have LinkedIn, but LinkedIn Learning is a great opportunity to learn about how to scale a small business, how to learn about a small business. You need leadership structure. You need people with very versatile roles and different minds, as Andrew said, because in a homogenous business, nothing gets done. You need diversity, and you need people who are going to come with different backgrounds and different trains of thought to, help push your business further along. And you need to understand your costs, where those come from, and then how you're going to market, how you're going to get clients. And then the most important is your revenue structure. How are you going to make money? Is it going to be a trial like Spotify, where you hook people in with a free dose and then get them paying, which has I've heard one of the best subscription rate trends, rollovers into paying clients. And then also distribution channels. How are you going to sell to them? So those are pretty much the importances for a business or a nonprofit.
That is absolutely perfect. Thank you both so much for sharing all of your wisdom and all of your knowledge. I think it has been truly enlightening to see just two young people go out there and try something and prototype through both the process and the pricing, but also that customer acquisition component. And I think everyone always has something to learn, and you have been so humble in acknowledging that. And I think it's really cool to see what you guys are doing, but also I'm curious to see what you guys will be doing. And so we hope that you join us again. We are just in the last about 2 minutes here. And what I would love to do is, because we don't have quite enough time for questions, is if each of you could just give some nugget of knowledge or a tip to our seniors who are going to be graduating in the spring here. Just a tip or something that you recommend as they embark on their next chapter.
Julien, you can start if you want.
I would say that college is a place to explore what you're interested in, and however you felt in high school about being judged for being interested in something that wasn't popular or whatever it may be. It's a place to really explore your passions and meet people who are also committed to those passions. In college, you're going to meet an array of people who have different interests, and it's important to listen and really be humble. And if you really take the opportunity to listen to what others are saying and not put yourself in the driving position, then you're going to learn a lot more about the people that you work alongside with and more about yourself. And so I think that was one of the greatest opportunities that I had in college, was just to be exposed to such a diverse set of people, and hopefully continue that when I work next year.
Great. Yeah. I think I only have a few seconds, but I guess one of the big lessons from what we've done, and I guess while we're on the topic, is just, and it sounds a bit trite, but just don't be afraid to fail in any way, and really try things that you think might even, there might be a failure that's the result. I think we've had a lot of failures along the way, and it's kind of taught us a lot about how we live our life, in the coming years. So I think accepting failure is one of, the greatest things, and it really, really shapes who you are. So.
Those are both absolutely perfect tips for the seniors as they embark, but also any student going through school right now and understanding the world around them. There's so much going on, but understanding that it's okay to try things, to make mistakes, to fail, and to fail quickly, right? So that we can come back on our feet as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I think everything you said today is just so perfect for the timing of both our classes, but as our students embark on a journey that right now is quite unknown. And there's so much opportunity within that unknown that I think you guys have kind of elaborated on, that it's going to be really cool to see everything. We are so grateful for your time, and I know that you both said that you'd love for people to reach out to you guys on social media channels. So if you guys look at the bottom of the screen right now, we have all of their different handles, so please do follow them if you need services or if you have questions. They are an open book for all of this knowledge, and they're just so great. We're just so grateful to have you guys join us and to give up your evening in such a powerful way to help the next generation.
Thank you. I just want to add one more point, actually. It's really, really quick, but we've been told no tens of times. And so the point about being told no is that you can either listen to being told no, or you can find a team that rallies around yes. And there will always be a team that rallies around yes. And so if you have the confidence and the ambition to believe in yourself and believe in the team and the idea that you're working on, you're always going to find those people who are going to say yes and hopefully support you in your endeavor. So always believe in yourself.
I couldn't agree more. I have heard no so many times, and it's ended up being a yes after a lot of hard research and perseverance. And I think those are qualities that you have really given to our students tonight, in just the fact that it might not go right the first time, it might not go right the 20th time, but if it is truly something that you are passionate about and you want to follow it, just as you said, the money will follow, but also so will the success, or you will pivot to something that is of an even greater passion or interest or market fit. And I think that's just really cool to see you guys do that in the real life, but also to see our students start to embark on those different journeys. And I hope that they do reach out to you guys for all of your knowledge. And we from SAAS just wish you both all the best in your next adventures as you guys embark on your careers at Accenture and within real estate. Please do stay in touch. And with that, we are wrapping up. If folks have questions, I think probably send them directly to Julien and Andrew at this point. Otherwise, we can maybe take those at a future date. But I just want to say thank you to all of our attendees, to SAAS for providing the platform, to Will, who is in the back of the scenes here, making everything work from our technology side, and to Julien and Andrew. Thank you so much, and we wish you a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Take care.